Hello, everyone. I am Link, and welcome to episode 2 of the Fifth Down College Football Talk. This is going to be the 2021 preview show and Week 1 predictions. And with me, as always, it's a starting guard for Bishop Sycamore, Hogthra.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast.
Yeah, we're going to have fun today as we're going to be doing a full preview of Power 5. We're going to be discussing all of the Power 5 conferences. We'll do some preview. We'll do some predictions of Week 1 because it's a pretty big week. It always is on Labor Day weekend. But before we talk about Week 1, let's talk about just the absolute travesty that was Week 0. Because there's no other way I could describe it. That way, the
clown show. You could describe it as a clown show.
The highlight, and I use that term loosely when I say highlight. Nebraska, Illinois. Oh, boy.
That game was a meme.
Nebraska, Illinois. It was such a slog to get through. And really, for Nebraska, not really for the sake of Illinois, because this is probably, if you're an Illinois fan, this is actually a good game to watch. But if you're a Nebraska fan or a football fan of any other team, that was the worst football I've seen.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It seems that Nebraska. We're not going to get to the Big Ten discussion yet, but it seems that once again Nebraska is going to be a bottom feeder of the Big 12 or the Big 10. I'm sorry, It was, and it seems that Scott Frost is still learning, or still trying to do the same thing he's always done. And that's not a thing that should necessarily be that's not necessarily a good thing. Really no improvement from Nebraska, losing to the best. No, not the best.
Illinois is the best team in the conference, guys. You heard it here first.
No. Hey, someone's going to clip that out, and then that's going to be used like, yeah, what an idiot. Yeah, but no. The worst team in the Big 12. Or the Big God! All right.
Good job.
Yeah, this is we're still doing this, by the way. We're only one take. Screw it.
We're running one take on this, so if we mess up, too bad.
Yeah, too bad. One take. But yes, Illinois, the worst team in the Big Ten coming into the season. I did like the Illinois offense, so lots of pre-snap. I don't know much about their coach heading into the game, but I really like this guy. And I think it was decent play for what Illinois football has provided for these past few years.
They used 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Other than that, we saw a rout. UCLA clobbered Hawaii in front of 3,000 people at the Rose Bowl. Honestly, the least amount of people I've seen at a Rose Bowl event. It was ugly. You'd think they still had COVID regulations. You'd think that after watching the game.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, UCLA does have their Week 1 game against LSU at the Rose Bowl, which that's probably everybody's saving up their money to go see.
I can't imagine it'd be a lot of money to go to Hawaii, UCLA, though.
No, that's true, but still, LSU is a premier, quote-unquote, premier team that we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about. But other than that, Fresno State clobbered what's going to be left of UConn because they're still playing football, but not for long.
And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they dropped down to the FCS in football.
No, they've already said that they're discontinuing their football program. I think after this season, I think this is the last year of UConn football, and such a tragedy, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a shame, dude. They gave us plenty of great memories. Remember that one year they made it to a BCS bowl?
They made it to a BCS bowl spite of, it's not like they were a highly, it's not like they were a highly skilled team either. They went 8-4 and finished unranked. But no, it was because the fact that the Big East had a BCS tie-in. That was the only reason they went to the Fiesta Bowl.
Exactly. Didn't they get murdered there too?
Yeah, they got beat by Oklahoma. So, oh well. Other than that, UTEP beat New Mexico State in a untelevised game, which, well, no one saw because it was untelevised. Plus, it was UTEP versus New Mexico State. I think this is the first time UTEP beat New Mexico State in I think the last 5 years, which is tragic for the UTEP Miners. And last, the reigning Mountain West champions, San Jose State, clobbered South Utah. And that was week 0. I don't know why we still have this, but
I don't because money. That's really the only thing I can think of. Because week 0 is pointless. You don't you get one premier game and the rest are a bunch of cupcakes, which you already see week 1 anyway.
Premier. Yeah, none of these games are premier. What are you?
Nebraska and Illinois is what I'm referring to. That is unfortunately where our standards are at. Where Nebraska and Illinois is a premier matchup.
If Nebraska and Illinois is a premier matchup, Subway is a gourmet restaurant.
Yeah, something's gone horribly wrong if that's the case, and unfortunately, it seems like something has gone horribly wrong.
Speaking of stuff that could potentially go horribly wrong, big news out of this college football week. It does have to. This is actually really pretty big. The announce of the Alliance, not the Alliance of American Football, which that league that folded all that long ago. We're talking about the College Football Alliance, or I guess collegiate alliance in general between every school that's not the SEC, or every conference. So the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the ACC, they're banding together to try to, I don't know, balance the scale between money and football. But
it'll be interesting, yeah, because of how much power the SEC has.
Yeah. And definitely going to be, those three are going to be definitely, trying to, really for television rights, they're going to try to band together to stop the SEC from taking hold of, every channel and having, potentially games like, Washington versus Oregon go to ESPN2. But, that's, the only big one. I'm pretty sure. I may miss something, but no, I don't know. If I think about it, I'll think about it. But now it's time for the real meat of this entire episode. It is our 2021 previews. Let's start out. We rank these off what we think will be the least to most interesting to us personally.
I agree.
The least interesting will be the ACC in a not very surprising
complete shocker.
In a complete shocker. Clemson probably will win the ACC championship again. I think everyone's predicting that, no doubt.
Yeah, there are two teams I would say you should be on the lookout for. Not this year necessarily, but in the future. You have Miami and you have North Carolina. North Carolina has Mack Brown, who's a very good head coach, of course. They've done a lot of good recruiting. They've even stolen a couple of recruiters from Clemson. So I do look at UNC as a team that could make some noise this year. I do think them upsetting Clemson is a possibility, but I am still going to be picking Clemson. And then on the other side, you have Miami. Miami is another team that's been rebuilding. I think they're pretty firmly heading in the right direction. And it's going to come down to them and UNC for the Coastal Division, or is it the Atlantic? Pretty sure they're in the Coastal.
Miami's in the Atlantic.
Oh, are they? My bad. But yeah, I do think that UNC and Miami are the other two teams you have to look at in the ACC. Other than that, the conference is pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, UNC. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Miami's in the Coastal because I don't know how ACC conference divisions are settled because it's weird. But no, Miami's in the Coastal. They're going to be fighting North Carolina for the spot in the ACC championship game. North Carolina definitely their big hype machine right now is Sam Howell. I don't think there's a doubt about that. He's pretty hyped in terms of his potential in the NFL. However, I don't think they have the complete defense to really go for a ACC championship run. Just nothing really impresses me about the North Carolina defense. However, it's still gonna. I think North Carolina is still one of those teams that are going to be in a top 20 position. They'll be up the. They'll definitely be a top 5 ACC school.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Probably the second best.
Yeah.
UNC to me could be a top 10 team this year. I don't think they're top 5, but I could see them being number 8, 7, 6.
I think they'll be high ranked because I mean, let's. I'm sorry. Let me pull up their schedule for a second. I don't think they play a really honest, a quote big time team until.
No, they don't get Clemson this year either.
They get Miami, which is in the middle of October. They start out with Georgia State, which I mean, that's probably going to be a big win for them. Then Virginia Tech, Duke, Florida State. Well, that's another team to talk about. Florida State. Apparently, they got something about them this year.
I do like where FSU is heading, but they're still pretty firmly in a rebuild stage. I think the highest it can go is probably 6 or 7 wins. They'll still be bad this year and probably the next after that, but I do like where they're going. I like what Norvell is doing there. He's building the trenches, which is the major problem with FSU, which is why they fell off a cliff in the first place. Because in Jimbo's last years, he basically stopped caring about the offensive and defensive lines. He only did skill position players. So you saw a bunch of lost yardage, no sacks, or any kind of pressure on the quarterback, which is just obviously a bad thing. But those two things combined led to FSU being severely downgraded from where they should have been.
Yeah, I mean they are getting McKenzie Milton, a transfer from UCF, which I mean, he's not too bad.
No, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country prior to his injury.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a big concern for that. But other than that, yeah, they're still in a rebuild phase. In terms of other ACC schools, I can't really tell you a lot about. We already talked about Miami. NC State is looking at another 8-win season yet again, like usual, honestly, because I mean, it's just how it is. Boston College, yeah, I mean, they're all right. They're all right. Louisville is, you know, they're still trying to rebuild.
Yeah, the ACC just isn't that competitive this year, to be all truthful. They're not really an interesting conference.
Yeah, and like, you know, the bottoms, you know, Syracuse, all of them, and Duke, Wake Forest, he ain't looking good this year. Virginia Tech is still in, like, they're still projected to be a middle-of-the-pack team, which, I mean, they're not going to, I don't think they're at the level where I think they should be, but, I mean, honestly, an 8-win season for them would be probably the peak at what they can do right now.
Virginia Tech to me has been pretty disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, because like last year, they did not have a good season, especially on defense. They gave up 32 points a game last year. But Pittsburgh, I don't really have much expectation. I mean, I have some expectation. They'll get into a bowl game. But honestly, the ACC just isn't really the most interesting. That's why we had them first this year in our discussion. So that's just how it is. But let's go ahead and get to our next conference, the Big 12, which will no longer be in existence in a couple of years, probably. That's not. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that. Apparently, they're in talks with BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and I think Houston to try to join the conference. So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm hearing as well, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are not going to accept anyone else. So that'll be interesting to see what happens to the Big 12.
Yeah. But the Big 12, big talk about Spencer Rattler and the Oklahoma Sooners. They're allegedly, I said that so negatively. I'm sorry. They are really good this year. They're going to be really good this year. The defense has seen a big overhaul in its structure, and they have some good pieces on the defensive side. Spencer Rattler is projected to be the next big Heisman quarterback out of Oklahoma. And
yeah, a lot of people are picking them for their national championship winner. I know several people who believe Oklahoma is the best team in the country this year, which I don't agree, but I understand why they feel that way.
Yeah, that's listed some big upsides. It's just the fact that can they finally get over the hump? Can they finally go on New Year's Day and win a game? That's like a big
exactly. They have not won a playoff game in their entire existence yet.
Yeah.
And they've often lost these games in pretty brutal fashion. You look at the Rose Bowl against Georgia, which is a game they blew by every imaginable measure. And of course, you also have 2 years ago against LSU. They lost, 70 to something? 62? 62 to like 7 or something? Ridiculous like that. But, they, especially against SEC teams, they haven't been able to do much.
No. That's why people joked around like Oklahoma's going to be the 8-4 school when they join the SEC. But I mean, with how they've kind of set themselves up for this year and maybe for the next years to come, I don't think that joke's going to be like a thing anymore. I think there's,
To see how they do this year, that's going to be a big thing.
In terms of some challengers to Oklahoma, Iowa State's still looking for their first conference championship since ever. I think I don't think they've won the Big 12 title. I don't think they won the Big 8 title. But I mean, hey, they're high ranked. I think the highest they've ever been ranked in their school, like starting out. Mike Rose is a big linebacker for them on the defensive side of the ball. I think they mostly kept their team intact from last season, which that's a good sign because this was a very talented team last season. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, okay. Just making sure you're still there. There's some silence there on this very professional podcast that we do.
Oh yeah, it's extremely professional. Most professional podcast ever.
Anyway, speaking of professionalism, the Texas Longhorns under the first season of Steve Sarkisian, which they're starting a redshirt freshman at quarterback, which, okay then.
Texas, in my opinion, is going to be one of those interesting teams to watch because obviously you have to watch them because they're Texas and they're always back. They're always on the cusp of breaking out, but they never do. So we'll have to see if this is the real deal this time around. I'm rather hesitant, as anyone should be. I do not bet on Texas, but maybe they prove us wrong this time.
Yeah, but I mean, Texas's offense will probably be, they're going to be revolving around Robinson, who's going to be probably all Big 12 running back at the end of the year.
Potentially a Heisman candidate.
Yeah. He's going to be a big star to watch at Texas. This is a Texas team that's, I think the spread's not really in their favor against their first game against Lafayette, which that's kind of saying something. The spread's only at, I think, 9. -9 for Texas. And some people have them losing to Arkansas week 2. That's kind of a scary thought.
Anyway, my bad. I was checking something.
Yeah.
We're good though.
Yeah.
Anyway, so shall we move on to the next conference?
Yeah, because other than that, TCU, another
Blah, mediocre
another
team.
big, Gary Patterson leading another all right squad at TCU. Oklahoma State, they're losing Chuba Hubbard or Tylan Wallace. Those are pretty big departures at Oklahoma State. Even then, when they were with the school, they weren't winning much anyway. West Virginia, probably gonna do big West Virginia things this year. Hopefully, finally, do something big and impactful in the Big 12. Kansas, this is the first year under Lance Leopold, who also Kansas unveiled some really bad looking uniforms for a throwback game, I think it's Colorado or someone, I forgot. But Texas Tech, Matt Wells is under the hot seat. Definitely, that's going to be a thing to look at. Like, there is just going to be another big year of him under his underwhelming Texas Tech Red Raiders squad. Who knows? But we'll see as we go through the Big 12. Now it's time for hit the West Coast, the Pac-12. The Oregon Ducks are looking like the big powerhouses of the Pac-12. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting. Generally, wait. Talking about the Pac-12, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. I was about to say, the Pac-12 to me, I think is pretty open and shut. I think Oregon's the obvious favorite. People are saying not Wisconsin. I don't know why it's Wisconsin. People are saying that Washington could maybe get the win. I don't know. One of my personal favorite dark horse picks to do well this year, that was UCLA. I like what Chip Kelly is doing for them. I like the defensive improvements. I think the offense is still really good. And, of course, they're going to have a pretty big test on Saturday when they not open up because they're already week 0 game, but in week 1 they play LSU at the Rose Bowl. So that's going to give a pretty good indication of how their season is going to go, in my opinion. So I look for them to be pretty decent.
Honestly, the Pac-12 South doesn't look like... not only UCLA, Arizona State, I think, is going to be a good team to watch this year.
Arizona State is hard to gauge because they're currently going through recruitment violations, and that investigation might hamper morale a little bit.
I don't know. I think that, for the Sun Devils, they've had their rushing on the defense side of the ball. They're blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, everyone. I can't talk today. I don't know why, but their offense took a big improvement, especially on the running side of the ball. I think this is gonna be. I don't think. Obviously, we're not going to. I'm not going to predict that Arizona State definitely national championship contender. Maybe no, they're going to be a team to watch. They're one of the teams that could beat that can beat a USC and can beat a Utah. So watch out for them.
Utah. You would obviously suspect Utah to be really good, but they're also currently losing to Weber State. So.
Well, I think they had I think the opening kickoff, Weber State returned it for a touchdown.
Yep, 98 yards.
Yeah. Hey, there may be some growing pains, but big games for the Pac-12. Definitely these are some to try to show the strength of the conference and not have them once again being one of the doormats of the Power 5 football. Oregon plays Ohio State next week. That's going to be a huge game. Ohio State's actually playing right now. They're playing good. They're about to go down.
They're playing Minnesota right now. They're not doing well. Minnesota's 3rd and goal, and if they score here, they lead, and they score, so they're going to be up.
Yeah, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, it's going to be a road game in the Horseshoe. USC plays Notre Dame.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be Oregon-Washington is going to be a big game in the North, as one of those teams are likely going to go to the Pac-12 championship. But we'll get the predictions when we get the predictions. Next up, the Big Ten. Speaking of, the Big Ten currently they've had 2 games so far. One was on the lesser side of what we deemed to have what football is when we had Nebraska, Illinois, but now we're actually having a pretty decent game between Ohio State, Minnesota. Lots of big long drives, lots of Big 12 or Big 10 action. But yeah, Ohio State are the big favorites. But I mean, they are losing right now. They are losing.
Yep, they are losing because Muhammad Ibrahim, Minnesota's running back, is basically single-handedly owning them.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and get to the what's the rest? How about the I mean, this kind of sucks because Ohio State, in terms of offense, they've got a very good offensive line.
Yeah, they have probably the best in the country. The biggest problem for them in terms of offense is a quarterback. It's a little questionable.
Yeah, they're starting a freshman.
Correct. C.J. Stroud, yeah.
Yes.
Who's looked... He threw an interception. I'm not too impressed. I do think they're trying to go more conservative, and I get that, but at the same time, I got to start seeing some throws from him. So far, I don't like the deep passes. Now, to be fair, one of his receivers did had a horrendous drop, which was inexcusable. But I need to see them start opening the playbook for their guy in order to get a real read on him.
Even like on the defensive side of the ball for Ohio State, for some reason it's not showing, but I mean the defensive line, I mean it's got a lot of very, very good potential there in the defensive line, but I mean like I said, it hasn't shown because I mean Minnesota's running all over them.
Yeah, well, the problem for OSU's defense last year and why it wasn't very good was, of course, a combination of COVID and the fact that the linebackers and the secondary were not very good.
Yeah.
In order for OSU to do well, that needs to change because they're going to be playing good teams this year, not a bunch of garbage teams. So they need the linebackers to show up. They need them to cover tight ends, cover running backs, etc. And they need the corners to actually cover people. Right? That's the thing. It's their defense this year. It's their defense. It's their back end of their defense and the quarterback. That's the big question. Everything else is good, though.
Yeah. Ohio State trying to go for another college football playoff run here. Hopefully they won't need the help of the Big Ten to just swivel the rules around before, when they had a COVID situation last year. Remember that? That was a certified Big Ten moment. That's still kind of bogus though. I mean, they
went like what 8-0.
They went 6-0, and the Big Ten required that they had to play 8 games to be in the Big Ten championship. They said this like before the season started, and then they changed it as soon as because Ohio State since Penn State had a very disappointing year last year. Ohio State was like their only chance of getting into the college football playoff. They changed the rules.
Yeah. Oh, and my one of my other kind of dark horses this year, and I can't believe we're actually talking about this team on a real podcast, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
Now you got to explain. I mean, I understand.
Now, the reason why I say this is because I like what Rutgers is doing a lot. We saw them get significantly better than they've looked in the past in only their first year. They were a missed field goal away from beating Michigan. And they looked pretty good against OSU. They only lost by 21, whereas in the past they would have lost like 70-7. So I look for Rutgers to be pretty good this year. I think they start out 3-0. And I think they could go potentially 4-1 if they can get a win over Michigan, which I think they're perfectly capable of doing.
Yeah. Speaking of Michigan, let's talk about them. I mean, another year the Jim Harbaugh experiment. They were very disappointing last year.
They were, yes. Although they were expected to be disappointing, to be fair. They were losing a lot of talent.
And it's just like under this, they got they have a couple of like bright spots. I will give it that. But other than that, I don't think they have a complete football team again this year. They may struggle this year. But staying in the East because Well, I think that's for the most interesting spot of the Big Ten. Penn State, very disappointing last year. Had a plethora of problems, especially with turnovers. Do they turn around this year compared to last year?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
All right then. Do we move on or?
They have a good backfield. They had like a lot of very good spots on offense and defense, but it's just like I said, turnovers kind of screwed them up at offense, and that had the defense stay out usually longer than usual. Other than that, Indiana, they were a big surprise last year.
Yep, they were.
And they're still under. Has Penix been ruled okay?
I believe he has. Indiana starts out tough because they're going to be getting Iowa, which is a top 15 team. That's a tough first matchup. A very tough first matchup.
I know they have that wide receiver who was very good. I think Ty Fogel is his name. I'm sorry, I don't really remember. And they also get Stephen Carr, which will help on the offensive side. As we kind of saw that last year, like as soon as Michael went down, I mean their team kind of slid because they were breaking in the top 15, and that injury happened. But now in terms of the West, right? We have Wisconsin being once again the big front runner.
Really? I've seen people saying Iowa's the front runner in the West. Wisconsin is supposed to be having a down year this year.
Well, I mean,
I have Iowa.
I guess that says to the strength of the Big Ten West.
I mean, it's routinely, arguably the worst division in Power 5 football, so...
I can't say Power 5 football because the Pac-12 South exists. Especially this season.
That's true. That's a fair point.
And also ACC Coastal. But, I just lost my train of thought. Jalen Berger's the big guy. Is going to be the big Wisconsin back and try to help them on the offensive side of the ball. Try to get back to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. But I mean, like you said, they're going to be facing an Iowa squad that's almost as competitive as they are, and they got another big running back. Tyler Goodson.
Yep.
I think he's preseason All-American. Am I right on that, or am I wrong?
Iowa has a very good team this year. I like them. I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were back in 2016, but I think they could very well be a top 10 cards, right? But as I said, that matchup with Indiana is big. So is their matchup with Iowa State. So Iowa has a tough schedule this year, definitely. They get Wisconsin, they get Iowa State and Iowa. Or not Iowa, sorry, and Indiana.
Yeah, go down the list. Northwestern, they were they've won the last 2 out of the 3 Big East West titles, and honestly, I don't see them going back unless something wild happens.
Yeah, they're expected to have a down year. Their defense is decimated.
Like last year, or not last year, but I mean, yeah, even with last year involved, their offense was not very impressive. Almost kind of, concerning. Like, what were they doing? But that's a concern for them. I don't really see them going back to the Big Ten. To Minnesota, we're seeing them right now. They're not producing a bad team. They're not, I mean, especially what a lot of people said going into the Ohio State game. They're holding their ground very well. Yes, we see, Sanford Jr. has a couple of overthrown balls and whatnot. Or not, I'm sorry, not, that's the Morgan. I'm sorry, everyone.
Yeah, you're
A
fine.
God. It's I'm struggling here,
You're good.
but no. Yeah, but Morgan is he's 4 for 10 right now.
Yeah,
He's also running
not
for
great.
his life. But
Not great.
but the back for Minnesota is kind of carrying right now.
Yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim looks like a superstar right now, so he might have a breakout season this year. Who knows?
Let's see, and we already discussed Nebraska. Don't really need to talk about them. Purdue, nothing really big out of Purdue this year, and Illinois, who did beat Nebraska, but I don't see them being a big threat to anyone else other than Nebraska, Purdue. I don't know if they play Maryland this year, but all right, let's get to the big boy conference. The SEC. Who you want to tackle first?
I think we have to tackle the big three in the SEC this year. That being Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M. Those are the three best teams. Now, Alabama is still the preseason favorite, which I'm not going to say they automatically win the SEC because there's way too many good teams this year. You know, they might not even win their division this year because A&M looks to be very good. And Alabama's replacing a lot of talent on offense. Pretty much the entire offense is getting replaced. So we'll have to see how that goes. A&M is pretty much going to be defined by how good their quarterback is. If he can't take them to the next level, I think they'll stay around where they were last year. And Georgia has already been dealing with a lot of injuries. Their best receiver, George Pickens, tore his ACL before the year even started, so they're already down their best player on offense. So they're going to have the running game do a lot of work in the defense as well.
Yeah, but in terms of everyone else, I mean, the SEC is once again stacked as ever. We'll start with what we already did, the big three. In terms of SEC title winners and all that. But, I mean, Florida is another team that we got to watch out for again. But, I mean, they're losing Pitts and Trask for the draft. And Dan Mullen's going to have to figure out what to do about that. It may be a regression year for the Gators. But we'll have to see about that. Kentucky, they're going to be a decent team to look at this year. Ole Miss, I'm honestly pretty high on Ole Miss. They're going to be a team that potentially could upset A&M. I think they're very. I mean, Lane Kiffin.
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean Lane Kiffin. It seems like they're in the state of Mississippi. No, Netherlands, the University of Mississippi. Lane Kiffin got his team to a 100% vaccination rate, which is unbelievable. And let's talk about that. The SEC's COVID cancellation policy, right? If your team suffers a COVID-19 related, like there's an outbreak, that game is forfeited for you. So we may see that where a team could forfeit their game due to COVID-19 outbreaks or whatnot. It also works if both teams have a COVID-19 outbreak, both teams forfeit the game and both will receive a loss. So, I mean, we could have more losses than wins in terms of the SEC, which that's very interesting. But we'll have to see. We're definitely concerned with some teams about this issue, but
definitely. Another team to look forward to is LSU. They're looking to be decent this year. They're ranked 16, I believe, which is pretty interesting considering they were pretty bad last year.
Yeah, LSU, they're currently in a pretty crap situation after that hurricane hit New Orleans. They're still they're playing in Houston, I think, their first game or two.
Houston?
Well, I mean, they're playing UCLA, but I think their base of operations are going to be in Houston for a little bit until everything clears up in New Orleans.
Then, of course, LSU's are also getting snooped around by the NCAA for some very not good. Just not a very appropriate work environment, we'll say.
Yeah. Um, Another Tiger team to watch out to just not really watch out for, but just to kind of look at the Auburn team this year is Bo Nix. It's just going to be another fun year. Bo Nix quarterback play. What's your
Will
thoughts?
Bo Nix finally live up to his potential? Find out on next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and we talked about last year under new coaching regime. It's going to be I'd say the Belay year for Auburn. They're still
I do not like the Brian Harsin hire.
yeah.
I don't think Harsin is equipped to coach an SEC team, especially Auburn, because you could argue that Auburn's the most difficult job in college football, because your top two rivals, if you're Auburn, are Alabama and Georgia. You have to play them every year, which is ridiculous. And you have to do that just to win the division, much less win the conference.
Yeah, definitely the worst job to have right now. And also, expectation-wise, you know how SEC fans can get about when your team slightly underperforms. Other than that,
Yeah, fired because you can't beat the
in terms of other teams to watch for in the SEC, I don't really have much expectation to say they're going to be like big teams, but I mean, definitely some bowl game participants. Missouri, they're going to look like, I think they look like a good team this year. Like I said, not super good, but I mean they'll be good. I already said Ole Miss. I have pretty good expectations with Ole Miss this year. In terms of everyone else, Mississippi State's going to be all right. I think they're going to be just an all right squad. In terms of everyone else, then you got like your 4 teams that I think are just going to be. And, okay, I can't say 4 because Arkansas actually looks like a competent football team this year. What do you think?
I think we have to talk about one school that has not been mentioned yet.
South Carolina?
No,
Tennessee?
the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah, what about them?
I think they'll be an interesting team to watch this year. I don't think they'll be good, but I am going to look to see how improved they are, because they do have talent on that roster. Right? There's definitely talent there. And as someone who really did not like the coaching hire for them, I do not think Josh Heupel or whatever his name is a very good coach. I've gave my perspective on him from a UC fan whose team has played him for the last 2 or 3 years. I guess I'm not really afraid of him. Although, to be fair, there's really no reason to be afraid of Tennessee as an Alabama fan. But I'm just not really impressed as a coaching hire for them. But as I said, I like their AD hire a lot. I think he was one of the best athletic directors in football. So we're going to have to see what he does with that program.
They're currently in a game. They're currently playing right now against Bowling Green State, 6-14, going into halftime. Hyatt already has 4 receptions for 62 yards. He's going to be the big offensive impact player for Tennessee. But other than that,
what was the score again?
6-14 Tennessee.
Really?
Yeah. Seems like I haven't been watching it. I've been watching but looking on Game Tracker, it looks like the Tennessee offense hasn't produced anything. Didn't produce anything in the second quarter, and Bowling Green took 2 field goals. Whoa, what's this, dude? These were deep field goals, 50 yards and 42 yards. Good for whoever this Bowling Green State kicker is. But other than that, South Carolina, they're going to be a pretty crap team to look at this year. Vanderbilt, I don't really have much expectations in. Ken Seals, he was scared. It looked like he was scared to death last year. It's just like, can he get his confidence back up this year? Who knows? But that's in terms of the SEC. I think we've talked. We skimmed over every team. Let's do some conference championship predictions. The ACC, I have Clemson. They're gonna win the Atlantic, and then the Coastal winner. Um,
I got UNC.
you got UNC.
You did it in Miami.
Yeah, I mean Miami is losing a lot. Like their defensive line, they're losing Jalen Phillips, and they're losing I forgot who the other dude was, but
Russo.
yeah, Gregory Rousseau. Thank you. They're losing they're gonna lose two big backs, defensive linemen. I think they've lost a couple other players to the draft. I'm not really super big and deep into them. I think Carolina also takes the Coastal. But in terms of the champion, Clemson will win once again. Well, I mean, I can't say you're surprised when I say that. I can't say I'm surprised when I say that. And I think you had the same prediction too, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, well. Not surprised there. Big 10. No, I'm sorry. Big 12. Oklahoma, I have at number 1.
I have Oklahoma, Iowa State.
Yeah, that's about the same one. Question is, who wins it all this year? Is it going to be Oklahoma or is it going to be Iowa State? Oklahoma, I think they're just too stacked. I mean,
this year, yeah. I think Iowa State's chance was honestly last year if they were going to do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing because Iowa State was a fun team to watch, and they'll be fun to watch this year.
Oh, they'll be very good.
They don't have to play Louisiana Lafayette, so I mean they're going to avoid the big upset
they'll be
there.
Good.
Yeah, but I believe their first game is against Northern Iowa.
Then they get Iowa. It'll be a gigantic game.
Also, something to note: Oklahoma, they're playing Tulane their first game. Just got moved to a home game because
I want to see them play at Tulane though.
Yeah, that kind of sucks because I mean this was probably going to be a big payday for Tulane in terms of tickets and like TV money.
OU was supposed to go to West Point last year to play Army actually before COVID.
Yeah, but I mean that sucks for Tulane. Oklahoma's still probably going to win no matter which way you put it. But I mean, it kind of sucks.
I agree, but it'd be pretty funny to see OU play at Tulane though.
Yeah, I mean they don't have to play. They built that new stadium not too long ago. It looks really nice. Pac-12, gonna go with my gut here. I think the Pac-12 championship is going to be USC versus Washington, just like last year. I think Washington's going to...
USC versus Oregon, you mean?
No, Washington.
Washington wasn't in the title last year.
No.
They couldn't go, remember? Because of COVID. I have my title game as USC versus Oregon. I think Oregon... Well, yeah, I think that Oregon versus either USC or UCLA.
Well, we'll have to see about that. Big Ten championship. Depending on what's going on this game, let's just say this game doesn't, like the current Minnesota-Ohio State game isn't happening, right? Or Ohio State's losing.
Yeah, they're losing 14-10.
No, let's say that isn't happening. What's still your prediction for the Big Ten?
I have OSU versus Iowa.
Alrighty then. That's pretty safe. I mean, Wisconsin has a pretty big game against Penn State. That's going to be a thing we'll do a prediction on in a little momentarily. But other than that, I still think Wisconsin's going to have a bit of the edge because Iowa usually is in a position like they've always been in a position where they've done that, where Big Ten West champions. Finally, they're gonna get to Indianapolis, but no, something happens. Blah blah blah. They lose something, and I think Wisconsin's going to pull it off this year. They're going to win the Big Ten West, but they won't beat Ohio State. And finally, after that, the SEC predictions. Alabama, Georgia.
I agree. The West is going to be a lot more interesting. I think Georgia's the obvious front runner for the East. There's really no other team because Florida's not going to be that great this year. I think they'll be decent, but nothing more. They're pretty much losing most of that offense that they had last year. So we'll have to see though. But yeah, I think it's Alabama Georgia.
Who's your? Honestly, I think that game may be potentially a top 5 showdown.
It will be. I think Alabama and Georgia could both go into that game undefeated potentially.
Yeah,
Georgia, I'm pretty confident they will if they can get past Clemson.
yeah, that's a game that's happening this Saturday. But or not? Who do you say wins the Alabama Georgia game?
That's difficult because, as I said, I like Georgia and what they have this year, but it depends on if JT Daniels can be consistent, which we don't know because we only saw him play in 3 games. He looked pretty good, but who knows? That could just be end of the year thing. The problem for Georgia is that they've been hit by the injury bug. Their best offensive player, as I said, George Pickens, got hurt and he's out for the year. So that's not a great start. So that could potentially be a big thing. So it's pretty even though, but I'm gonna go Alabama because Homer.
All right then. Well, I mean, Nick Saban's probably gonna field another big national championship team, and there's no doubt about that. Honestly, I have Alabama also winning. Georgia, honestly, barring what happens, I still think Georgia gets into the playoff one way or another as the 4 seed.
I mean, if Georgia wins out, with the exception of losing to Alabama, I think you have to let them in.
Yeah, because they'll be
That's the thing.
undefeated. Alabama, that would be number 1 versus number 2.
Yeah, and then you'd also, of course, have a win over Clemson on a neutral site, which is huge.
Yeah.
But Georgia probably has to win this week. Because the thing is, if they lose this week, this Saturday, they are basically in a life or death situation the rest of the way. They cannot lose another game, so they have to win week 1.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But what I think, if we look down the line, losing to number 1 and number 2, I mean, we may see a. Well, okay, they don't play Bama in the SEC, but going into championship weekend, their only one loss will be to Clemson, which isn't bad to put on your resume because Clemson's probably going to win out and be number 2 by the end of the year. So, I mean, we could see Georgia at 3, depending on how Ohio State looks for the rest of the season. But I don't know. That's an interesting topic. But honestly, Bama's still going to look like the SEC champions for the, I don't know how many straight year. What?
Not very long, actually, because remember, 2020 LSU won it all, so we didn't win the championship that year.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, this is like Nick Saban's. How many SEC championships has he participated
I don't know, actually. I think 6 or 6, I think. Yeah, 6.
He's only lost 1 time in Atlanta. That was against Florida in 2008.
Yep. He only lost 1 SEC title against Florida. Pretty close this last season, though. They almost blew the game against Florida last year.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. That ends the... Oh, all right, let's do a... let's just say that... one last thing. You want to do a playoff prediction?
Sure. Why not?
All right, you then go ahead.
I got Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oregon.
Ooh. Okay, give me Alabama. Is going to go undefeated. Georgia goes undefeated until they play Bama in the SEC title game. They still get in. Clemson, their one loss will be against Georgia. And the last spot is very interesting because, like I said, Ohio State isn't really playing it's not very impressive right now against a Minnesota squad who had no expectations. But, I mean, it could just be opening week jitters. But, other than that, I think Ohio State gets that last spot. They may have 1 loss. Actually, I think they will have 1 loss. Something is going to happen. Maybe it's a loss against Oregon. Who knows? But
potentially. And OSU has a big game against Oregon in week 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And they may lose to Minnesota here, but we probably won't find the conclusion until the game, until this episode's over. But All right, let's do our week 1 predictions. We'll only do the couple of the big games, right? Because
Good with me.
that's how it is. We'll start with some Friday games. I think the only big Friday game is North Carolina, Virginia Tech. There is Northwestern and Michigan State, but I don't know if that's really a big
Yeah,
marquee.
not this year.
North Carolina will probably win this game against the Hokies. I mean, they're
Yep.
playing on the road in Lane Stadium. That's going to be a big hostile environment. So, even then, I still think North Carolina gets the edge. And you probably agree with that. But let's get to Saturday. Our big Newton game, Penn State, Wisconsin.
That's good. That's a difficult one to call. Those are two teams I think are about even. Penn State is going to be looking for a rebound year, obviously. They were pretty bad last year. Wisconsin's supposed to be having a down year this year as well, so we'll have to see. I'll go Penn State, though. I have confidence they'll bounce back. Don't know how far they'll bounce back, but I do think they bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State has had Wisconsin's number. They beat them for the last 4 times.
True,
So-
I forgot about that as well.
Yeah, the last time that Wisconsin beat Penn State was 2011. But Wisconsin's going for another streak too. This is they're trying to win their home opener for the 26th straight time. So we'll see how it is. But honestly, I think it's pretty even. But with how Penn State played with last year, there could be some morale issues in the locker room. I think Wisconsin gets a win over Penn State, but it's going to be a good game to watch.
Agreed. Penn State also has a game against Auburn, which is going to be their whiteout game this year.
Keep moving further in the day. Alabama versus Miami that's in Nick Saban's. I don't know how many fucking years he's done this, but I think this is the 9th straight game where he's opened up at a neutral site. Which
Correct, but this is going to be the last year he does that because starting next year, all the games are going to be home and homes.
Yeah, which good because Jesus Christ.
Well, I agree. It's very good. I do think Alabama wins this game. I think this game is going to be pretty similar to 2016 against Wisconsin, where basically the game is close for the first half, but then Alabama kind of pulls away in the second half. I expect it to go pretty similarly to that.
Alabama wins this game, and it's probably gonna. It might get ugly. Who knows? But we'll see you as that game in Atlanta. Big Ten at starting at the same time. Indiana, Iowa, 17 versus 18. Two teams that have pretty good expectations on them. Not really national champion, but you said Iowa has a Big Ten champion. Who maybe the Big Ten West champions. So
I think they're probable Big Ten West champion. I think they could be a top 10 team this year if everything goes correctly. They have a pretty hard opening schedule. They have to play Indiana and then Iowa State, which is those are two top 15 teams right there in a row. So
Indiana's 17th, but top 20. Yeah.
Oh, are they? I thought that'd be higher than that.
Nope. I have Iowa winning. Honestly, Indiana, especially like the second half of their season. They started off strong, but I mean the second half. I mean, they had a big win over Maryland, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, but like Ohio State, that was a pretty brutal loss. And then they lost to Ole Miss in the bowl game. In my opinion, I still have Iowa winning. They've won their last 5. So, that's how it is. This is a very interesting matchup because, I mean, this has a team that has some expectation this year. And another team that has just kind of being average written all over them. West Virginia, Maryland.
Give me West Virginia. I like where Maryland's going, and I think they could be good in this two or 3 years, but they're still collecting talent.
Yeah, I mean, this is their first time playing Maryland since 2015. I still think West Virginia does have the edge because Maryland, like you said, they're still kind of they're improving, but they're still in the kind of the learning phase, if you will. A big game, and a lot of people have like a big upset of the week. Mark on is Louisiana against Texas. That's Louisiana Lafayette, not Louisiana. But I mean, Louisiana's marching in. They had a lot of national attention based off last year. They upset Iowa State. They're marching into Austin under a crucial big change in the Texas coaching and just an overall in Texas in general. Who do you have winning that one? Because I think it's going to be a pretty good game to watch.
Texas and
Lafayette.
who?
Louisiana Lafayette.
Give me Louisiana Lafayette for the win.
Yeah, I mean, the spread has Texas at 9, but I mean,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Louisiana. They did beat a good Iowa State team last year. So
they did. You're right.
I mean, who says they don't beat Texas, who's under a kind of questionable? Or I mean, they're going to be under a first year under Steve Sarkisian, who may not have it all figured out by this Saturday. Honestly, I could see Louisiana winning.
Up. And we have to go to our big night game. Well, night games. LSU and UCLA. Who do you have?
I mean, UCLA did look very good against Hawaii last week. LSU is kind of, I think in terms of morale, they're kind of not only fighting for their spot to be in a top 15 position, but also trying to fight for their, they're fighting for their state right now, who, like I said previously, they've had a big hurricane go through as we're recording this, and there's still, a lot of people without power there in the Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all of Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to step up, you have to do it now.
Yeah, but if they're walking into the Rose Bowl to play UCLA, a team that beat A&M not too long ago. So, I mean, I know you're high on UCLA, but are you high on them enough to beat LSU?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I don't know how LSU is going to look. They're a big question mark, especially because Miles Brennan's not going to be starting for them because he got hurt. So we don't even know who their starting quarterback's going to be.
Good thing I'm going to agree with you. I think UCLA is going to win, and it's going to be a good win for them. Next game, the big one of the week, Georgia-Clemson. It's going to be a tight game. The spread is almost even. A lot of people have Clemson beating Georgia, but what's your thoughts on it?
I have Clemson winning. Georgia does not win big games. They're pretty much antithetical to the idea of winning big games. I don't see how that changes. Give me Clemson by 10.
All right, then. Well, then. I think I may disagree with you there. I think Georgia's going to be, they got a lot of their offense returning last year, and they got a lot of their defense also returning. Clemson, honestly, at quarterback, honestly, DJ is not really, he didn't look impressive against the very few games he played against, I think he played Dame, and he played, a couple other games with the Clemson Tigers before Lawrence went back to the starting. But I don't know. I don't think that's very impressive, and this is how the offense is going to be built around him. I think I have Georgia winning. It's going to be close. And let me just say this. I hate the fact that I turned a historic rivalry like Georgia-Clemson to the Dukes-Mayo Classic. How many of these neutral site games are we going to have? It's almost a gag at this point.
It is. Yeah, it's a joke because it makes more money, right? Because at the end of the day, the reason why the neutral site games became so popular was because it was a way for both teams to make more money. Because obviously, in the scenario of a home and away game, the only team that makes money is the home team. That's it. The away team doesn't get anything. But a neutral site game, both teams make money.
But I mean, think about it like this. I mean, you know, they both split their. I mean, think about it. Both of their stadiums are at about I think 80,000 capacity. I don't think both teams are going to be are really starving to see for money right now. So I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not like this has been a thing they've done where they've always played neutral site. They've had like in their previous matchups a home and away, and they've been stellar games to watch in terms of an atmosphere view because you got the Sea of Red when they go to Athens, you got the Sea of Orange when they go to Clemson. So that's just
but I believe it's in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's in Charlotte. It's at Panther Stadium. But there's two more games I kind of want to talk about. The Sunday game because it's Labor Day weekend. Dame, Florida State. Notre Dame last year went to the playoff. They got routed, and people were doubting their legitimacy. I think they're playing a Florida State team, which a lot of people say they could win. The fact that Florida State could win.
It's a potential upset. I could see it, but I do think Notre Dame wins.
Yeah, I mean, it could. It's going to be close. I think Florida State will definitely have a game like they're going to have a competitive game against Notre Dame. But I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Notre Dame's going to win and be funny. And then the Monday game, Labor Day. Louisville, Ole Miss. What's your thoughts on that? I think Ole Miss is going to win. It's going to show a lot of people that Ole Miss is going to be a good team to watch this year.
Ole Miss to me looks like this year. I have them as a 8-win team, potentially 10 wins if everything goes correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I see no. I mean, they got a lot of good players on that Ole Miss. Like Lane Kiffin's he's very comfortable in his role there. It's going to be a good year for them. They're going to go. I think they're going to beat Louisville by a good amount.
I just got an interesting highlight. Apparently, Boise State picked off a 100-yard pass for a touchdown. Pretty cool.
All right, I think that's the last game to predict there.
Agreed.
And
seems like we're good.
I think that's going to conclude this episode of college football, Fifth Down College Football Talk. Pretty good episode. We got a lot to say about every team in Power 5. And we did our Week 1 stuff, and then we'll come back to you next week with a full Week 1 recap if there's any big stories after. And we'll holler at you next week. Sorry for not record. We were supposed to record this episode last week, but some scheduling conflicts went out. And and we recovered this week. So that does it for episode 2. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.